Brothers and sisters, it's a pleasure to be here today. Certainly a pleasure to be here today and to be able to deal with the structures that we have in place. Structures we have in place. I want to be able to, and the purpose of this show is to be able to encourage brothers and sisters, to encourage us in these difficult times. And in these times, we need encouragement. We need it. Certainly need it because if we don't keep our eyes on the ball, we don't stay encouraged, we don't stay upbeat, then the problems that are facing us will begin to overtake us. These problems be able to, thank you, brother, go over to our natural lives, the problems that we face. And so we have to be steadfast. We can't be powerful. We can't be steadfast without coming together. And I mean it as an individual family, we have to come together. And then we have to come together as a cultural family. We have to do it. Separating ourselves from one another is never the answer. And being transparent with one another is definitely the right way to go as it relates to the problems that happen within the Black community. Whether that be in the family, whether it be in relationships, wherever it may be. Wherever it may be. And we have to realize, brothers and sisters, we have to realize that we are in trouble in America. As our brother has certainly told us. Salam alaikum, Brother Derek. Salam alaikum. Our brother said we are in some serious trouble here in America, and that's true. That's true. So we've got to learn how to come together. I think this is our major challenge. Learning how to come together. We've got to be careful, especially those of us that call ourselves religious leaders. Especially those of us that call ourselves religious leaders or leaders in the Black community. We've got to be careful. We're not being good leaders or good stewards, ripping people down with words. You're not being good leaders or good stewards. And toward this, I'm talking about Black sisters, or misusing your bodies in ways to disrespect your family, your male partners, your children, using our mouths to disrespect our partners, our children, or disrespect ourselves. We have to give a understanding. We have to talk, and we have to have some understanding today. We got to have some understanding. I think that's the main thing that we need. And we understand that there's not strength. You don't show yourself strong in ripping others down or showing how you can damage one another. This is how people destroy a nation. This is how we destroy ourselves. When we're doing these things, this is how we destroy a nation and destroy ourselves. And we don't need destruction. We need brothers and sisters that are alive. We need it. And you don't have enough intelligence among us to do that, then we need to regroup until we can learn that intelligence. We have to regroup. And it's just a fact. There are things that we face in our childhood that we have to overcome. We've got to overcome them. If we don't overcome them, then we can't break forth to overcome the other tribulations that are happening to us, the other trials and the other tribulations. For instance, if we come from homes that have been challenged, we didn't have good parents, we didn't have good mothers, didn't have good fathers, what we would call good mothers or good fathers, or our parents come from backgrounds where they were challenged, then we know that our first job is to set a foundation for our children, set a foundation for our relationships, where we will succeed and surmount those insurmountable odds. We've got to do that. Why am I saying that? I'm trying to reach brothers and sisters when I say that we have to deal with the situations, deal with the deck that we've been dealt, that our hands have been dealt. We have to deal with those situations. And this is building the foundation toward a strong unit, a strong family, a strong army for Black people to be able to defend ourselves. We have to be able to defend our spiritual, emotional, and physical selves. We have to, right? We have to be able to do that. Our psychological selves, we have to be able to defend that. And the best way for us to be able to defend ourselves in these natures is to acknowledge what we are dealing with in our lives. We've got to acknowledge what we're dealing with in our personal lives before we can acknowledge what we're dealing with in our social lives, in our global lives. We have to be able to acknowledge that. If you come from a home, brothers and sisters, where your father was a pimp, or your father had made a bad decision to end up in prison, your mother have been a prostitute or pimped you out and things of that nature, all these things, we have to face those things. It doesn't make us any less of people to face those things. We have to face them. And once we face them, then we're able to change these things around. It's not our faults. The way we come up, it's a design that has been given to us by this enemy. And those designs were given to us to break us down. But we have to acknowledge them. You have to acknowledge them because it's the only way you can overcome it. And that's the one thing that I love about the teaching of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad is that he, in order to raise you up from death to life, you have to pay attention and focus on where we come from and how do we get to the place where that's no longer an obstacle to us. How do we get to the place where those tentacles are no longer pulling us down into depression or pulling us down in places where we'll mistreat those that are trying to support us, put themselves in position to support us. And we have to be willing to see that. This is building the foundation for us to put our differences aside. Before we can put our differences aside, before we can overcome these insurmountable odds, overcome these handicaps in our lives, we have to first of all individually acknowledge our sensitive areas. And that's very important. That's very important. And so many of us in the Black family have come up in difficult situations. Homes where there was drugs involved, homes where there was prostitution, homes where there was homosexuality, homes where we were molested, homes where we were improperly taught, homes where the actions of our parents have become nightmares for us, nightmares in our relationships, nightmares in every area of our lives. And we have to focus on those things. If your father was a pimp and a drug dealer, if we don't fill that void with anything else, if we don't acknowledge the misguidance of the father, then the son will eventually be a pimp and a drug dealer. If the mom was a prostitute, the mom was pimping out the daughter, eventually from distortion, no matter how much we run from it, that girl will have to endure that and may repeat those same actions if we don't see it early, if we don't acknowledge it and build away from it. And this is happening in the Black family. And I have to speak on it because this is the reason a lot of us are divided. We have individual problems, individual issues. Instead of dealing with it and working on it and coming together, or if we made mistakes with our family members, our spouses, or whomever, or what have you, we don't go and correct those mistakes, and we lead these trails of broken pieces in our lives. We have to be willing to admit that we're broken. We have to be willing to admit that we made mistakes. We have to be willing to do that. We have to be willing to admit our fears and be transparent about it so these things won't overcome us. And we pray, our desire and our prayer is that in doing this, our spouses, our friends, our family members, and those that are close to us will be able to aid us in the sense that they have some spiritual, religious, psychological, emotional, and physical maturity to be able to understand these things. Because we have to create a foundation And that foundation and the elemental building of that foundation have to be the black family. And once we realize and have invested in the black family, then we'll be able to have something to fight for. We'll be able to do that. But you'll never do it attacking one another. It won't happen. You won't do it. This will be very unsuccessful. But we'll do it by unity. We'll do it in unity. So tonight, when I come before you, I come before you in my brokenness. I come before you as a brother, not a leader, not a teacher, not a guide, but I come before you as a brother, and I come before you as a broken brother who have learned to acknowledge things that have broken me in my life and to stand strong and be strong enough to fix those things by being transparent, to say what happened, and to be transparent, to speak with the individual that brokenness may have happened with. And once we do that, brothers and sisters, and to create a line of communication, a line of peace, and a line of healing with our brothers and sisters. If you take a knife, brothers and sisters, and put it in the back of a friend, put it in the back of a family member, put it in the back of someone close to you, and you pull that knife out 6 inches, pull that knife out 9 inches, right? And you pull it all the way out, right? You pull it all the way out. The individual is still hurt. The blow is still deep. So the healing will have to take place. Whether the knife is in or not, the healing will have to take place. And the healing can take place better with the knife out. And so we have problems among our family members. We have problems running away from it or thinking we're going to teach each other a lesson. It's not the answer. We've got to learn how to fix these problems inside of our community first, whether it be on a personal level, individual, family, religious, or otherwise. We've got to fix those problems, but we have to be transparent enough to do that. Why am I talking about this? Because we want to build a foundation. Our job is to build a foundation for the black community. We've got to build a foundation. If we don't build a foundation, we're finished, brothers and sisters. We have to have a foundation. Whereas you and I are able in this foundation to learn on a micro scale, which is an individual or private scale, how to fix these problems. And then once we do it in our personal lives, truly fix the problem, not say the problem is fixed so that it will seem like that we've overcome and the problem is still there, but truly fix the problem, truly fix it so that it won't be something to limit or stop us from advancing in our lives. So this is our challenge. This is our challenge, whether it be, again, individualized relationships or whatever, because we have to build a foundation in the black community that has communalism. And once we come together as a community, once we're able to congregate, then we're able to attack those problems in whatever shape, form, or fashion that we need to attack them in. So that's my desire, my prayer, is that we will be able to do that. And we're going to do that. We're going to go over ways to do that tonight. We're going to go over ways of putting our differences aside. We have to put our differences aside. Right now, brothers and sisters, in our community, today, you and I are affected by these differences that won't allow us to come together. Tonight, I encourage you that we must put our differences aside for the United Black Front. For the United Black Front. And it's good that we talk about this for the United Black Front, because when we put our differences aside, we'll be able to clearly see all the things that are affecting us as a people, right? We'll be able to clearly see it. Now, if you'll look, the police is still killing while we're divided, while we're attacking one another in our relationships, in our individual lives, in our communal lives, our religious lives, our psychological lives, our biological lives, our physiological lives. The white man is still killing us. He's still killing us. He just killed a young man by the name of Donovan Lewis in Ohio. It's not the only one, but he's the latest one that's been killed. He's not the only one. He's the latest one that's been killed. So what does that mean? What does that mean to you and I? What does that mean? To you and I, what this means is that we have work to do amongst one another. Because had we been united the way that we should be, we're getting there, but we're not united the way we should be. Had we been united the way we should be, then when those police officers shot that young man in his house, when they rolled in on him, then you'd had some dead police. You had some dead police. Had we been united the way that we should be united, the way that we're working to be united, had we be truly discussing black nationalism. And this is the reason why Dr. Ava Muhammad is so important, brothers and sisters. Dr. Ava Muhammad talked about putting our differences aside and honoring black nationalism. We have to honor black nationalism. And the only way for us to honor it is to put our differences aside, to learn to fix our problems amongst one another, and then put our differences aside. And once we learn to fix our problems one amongst another and put our differences aside, then we'll be able to properly fight the oppression that is facing us. Because now this is the last level of that oppression. And this is a physical level of the oppression that's facing us today. This is a physical level. This is a physical level. And Dr. Muhammad, Ava Muhammad, warned us. Is that right? Did she warn us of this? She warned us of this. And here we are, brothers and sisters. Here we are in the thick of it. You know, that we are still walking in day as if we're walking in midnight. That's what's happening to you and I. We're still walking in day as if we're walking in midnight, like we don't know what's going on or where we are. We're in America. We're still in bondage. And the white man is killing us with impunity. He's getting away with it now because we're allowing him to get away with it. If you want to stop this stuff that's happening, we've got to fix ourselves immediately, tonight. Tonight. It doesn't take years for us to do this. We just have to decide to do it and do it. We have to make a decision tonight. We have to make a decision tonight. Will we continue to allow these killings to happen? Will we continue to allow this to happen? That's the choice that's before us tonight. Will we continue to be immature enough to stay divided from one another, right? And selfish enough to be self-centered in our lives where we can't fight the enemy that's affecting us. It's hard for black people, even in this darkest hour, for us to come together, put our differences aside because we're busy holding grudges toward one another. Well, he said this to me. She did that to me. And I can't see beyond it. Instead of putting it in the hands of Allah to be able, or God, and say whatever you want, to be able to overcome these differences that we have, to be able to focus on the overall objection. And our overall objection should be liberation. Our overall objective should be freedom, justice, and equality for black people. Our overall objective should be to move out, as our sister said, right? The sister said that it's either separation, right, or non-existent. Separation or death. Separation or death. So we've got to focus on that. Separation or death is the only outcry that we're able to give as one another. It's the only outcry. So you and I have to be wise, and we have to be intelligent. We've got to be wise. We got to be intelligent. We may not always agree, brothers and sisters, but we can love one another irregardless. We may do things to hurt one another, and it'll be hard. It's painful, but we have to be transparent, and we have to get beyond these things in whatever way that we can. Whatever way that we can, we have to have some form of unity, even if we don't make it physically together, whether it be relationships or whatever. Even if we don't make it physically together, we still have to hold dear to our responsibility as one another, whether it be children in the middle or whether it be just us, we still have to have a relationship beyond what's selfish that will cause us to be responsible for one another. And that's very, very, very important. It's very important. And this is so important that if we don't get it together, brothers and sisters, you'll find that many more of us will begin to be killed, and many more of us will begin to be slaughtered by these enemies that are standing in front of us, all because we're not willing to put our differences aside, all because we can't find something to unite us when there's plenty to unite us, more than there is to divide us. But if we don't understand that, if we don't get some understanding then we're going to be under the grip and the yoke of this oppression again. And you'll find, brothers and sisters, that this enemy will not and has no desire to stop killing us, has no desire to stop mistreating us, and is very open. And as you can see, no federal law that's passed will ever stop the white man from killing us. It won't do it. Federal law won't do it. So you have to fight your way out of it. You can't sing your way out of it, but you can swing your way out of it, brothers and sisters. You can swing your way out of this. You can't hug your way out of this, but you can shoot your way out of this. The man is coming up on you with knife. The man is coming up on you with razor. The man is coming up on you with gun. The man is coming up on you with rope, coming up on you with trucks and everything else. And he's let you know what his desire is. What his desire is to do to you. The man's let you know. He hasn't been secretive about it, not one iota. He hasn't been secretive about it. And you have to understand where you are and who you are in this time that you're in. And we've got to come together. Don't forget that we'll be meeting in Atlanta. We'll be meeting in Atlanta. And I believe, if I make no mistake, if all things are go, we'll be meeting in Atlanta the last week of September. Last week of September, and I'm putting this in there, the meeting in Atlanta. The last week of September. The very last week. And understand that when we get there, it's to honor our sister, but we come in there to organize business. We come in there to organize business, and I'm not going to put it out. But you know what we got to do. If you got any sense, you know exactly what we have to do. We'll have performing artists at this venue. There'll be performing artists at the venue. But you and I know exactly what we have to do. We know exactly what's facing us. And we'll just have to face it as brothers and sisters. We'll have to face it. There's no getting around it. There's no getting around it. We'll have to face it as brothers and sisters. Talk about what's happening and discuss it. They just shot a young man in Columbus, Ohio. Donovan Lewis was just shot in Columbus, Ohio. Just shot a young child. Somebody's child who's young. You know, if you're 30 and below, you're young. You know, 30 and below, you're young. You know, this somebody's young child that didn't have a weapon. He had a pipe in his hand, didn't have a weapon, and it was no defense pipe. I think it was something they used. I hesitate to say a drug pipe, but it was something like that, something for relaxation. It wasn't a, when I say pipe, I don't mean a pipe wrench or anything like that, or a pipe, metal pipe. No, it was a little glass pipe. He was in his bedroom, wasn't bothering anybody. Police kicked in the door and went on a shooting spree of this young man who didn't have a weapon, who was not armed. Now that should do something to you and I. Anytime we hear something like this, it should do something to you and I when we hear these things. And brothers and sisters, we've got to wake up. We've got to be steadfast. We've got to be unmovable. We have to be steadfast in our love for black people. We have to be willing to stand for our love for black people. It doesn't matter what is going on or what you're going through. That ain't gonna stop that man from killing you. You got to get some maturity. And I guess that's the thing that I'm putting before you tonight. You got to get maturity. We got to get maturity and understand exactly what's going on. These people are complicit, are absolutely complicit in killing us. Absolutely complicit in killing us. And it won't get any better until you do it. Until you stand up and get some maturity and find out you have more in common than you do apart. And stand up against this oppression. But the first level of that is us uniting, putting our differences aside. Okay, on the individual level, I told you, a family level, a couple level, whatever it is. A parenting level, whatever it is. Put those differences aside. Now, the next thing that we've got to do when we get the differences put aside, The next thing we got to do is realize that we all have more in common, right, than we have apart. We're black. That's the most important thing in the world for you to understand, that we're black. We're black people. All of us have troubled backgrounds. All of us have a story. All of us have problems. But stop attacking one another and stop using words to hopefully destroy one another. We can't do that, brothers and sisters. These powers that we have weren't meant for against us, but they were meant to be used against the enemy. They were meant to be used against the enemies. You got to understand that. Sisters, you have to work on your delivery. You got to work on, especially those that say you're conscious, especially sisters that say you're conscious. You got to work on it. Your responses should be conscious. No matter how emotional you get, you should have a conscious response to your brother. Brothers, if you're conscious, you should have a conscious response to your sisters. We can't attack one another or go out and do our best to hurt one another. Brothers and sisters, if you're not getting along and you're going out sleeping with a man or sleeping with a woman, that's not hurting anybody but you. And they have so many diseases out there that you'll end up punishing yourself and bringing something home to your husband and your children, and vice versa. Brothers, you'll end up bringing a disease home to your wife and your children that wouldn't have happened if you learn to control your emotions and stop sleeping around and out of revenge or using sex as a weapon. We can't do that. Stop using emotions as a weapon. We can't do that. Stop using your social understandings as a weapon. We can't do that. It doesn't build us up. It doesn't teach us how to put our differences aside. It doesn't mature us to help us to deal with the problems and situations that we're dealing with. It doesn't help us, brothers and sisters. If you, and I have to talk about this because this is one of the main problems that I see that is stopping us. One of the main problems. If you love that man or that woman when you were with them, if you loved them prior to having children, and you have these children, you have to still find a love for them. Both of you have to learn how to come together. Both of you have to learn how to deal with differences that seem irreconcilable. Deal with these differences, right? So that you'll be able to overcome these insurmountable odds, because the children need the father and the mother. The children need the father and the mother. Black women, stop using children as tools for revenge. That's not what they were created for. They were created out of love, to produce in love, and hopefully for them to grow up in the admonition of their parents and the admiration of God, so that they'll be able to produce the other thing and produce the other generation, and to use their parents as a positive springboard. So parents, we have jobs to do to be the best parents that we can be. Doesn't mean that we're going to be perfect. It doesn't mean that we're going to get along all the time, but we have to do the best job that we can. Now, as individuals, we have to deal with our individual problems. You don't hide your problem by pointing out someone else's problem. That doesn't mean your problem go away. It's not a matter of a bigger problem or a little problem. We have to acknowledge that all of us have situations that we've dealt with, and we have to overcome these situations. You and I have to overcome these situations the right way, and it means being transparent with one another. Transparent with one another, open and honest with one another, so we'll be able to overcome whatever the problem or situation together as a unit. We'll be able to do that. If you're individual couples, the same thing. You have to be able to come together, put your differences aside, put your pride, leave it on the shelf, leave your pride in the car, leave it in the garbage, right? Leave it there and come together, transparent and humble, so that you'll be able to deal with whatever situation that comes before you. Whatever situation, and you can do it. This is the way that God created us, but we've got to move each other. We got to move ourselves out of the way. And as I'm talking to you, brothers and sisters, I'm talking to myself. Isn't that right? Because none of us are exempt from this human carcass that we're in, but we have to be able to control this vehicle, right, for the spirit that God has set within us. We have to be able to do that. So, brothers and sisters, we have a job to do. We have to be looking at Atlanta, Georgia. We need to be looking at it, and I need your support to finalize some things and set it in place. If there are any entertainers out there, I want to say that all leaders, all entertainers are invited. I want to put that in there. All leaders and entertainers are invited. I want to say that so you have it in here. All leaders and entertainers. So anybody that has a gift, that can sing, that can rap, can dance, we intend to make this one of the best festives that we can find. And it is no better way than to get brothers and sisters that are gifted to come out and spread their arts, because this will be a very conscious meeting. Conscious meeting. We've got to be conscious in what we're doing now. We can't go out there just spiritual. We can't go out there just religious, but we've got to be religious and spiritual, and we have to have a cultural consciousness in what you and I are doing today, what we're putting forth in this generation. We have to have consciousness in it, and we can't be afraid. We can't be mealy-mouthed. We can't be tiptoeing through the tulips, brothers and sisters, and we can't be tearing each other down. We'll never make it like that. We'll never make it like that. And it's a way of moving our egos out of the way and looking at one another, irregardless of what differences we had as groups, as individuals, as couples, as family. Irregardless of what differences we've had, we've got to put these differences aside. And this is what meeting in Atlanta is going to be about. So we can get a full understanding of what our sister, Dr. Ava Muhammad, meant when she said black separation or death. We've got to separate ourselves from the enemy. And that means us coming together and moving as a unit, separating ourselves from the enemy and going to our own meetings and coming amongst one another and deciding, we already know what we have to do, but deciding to move now. Now is the time. Now is the time for us to move. You and I, brothers and sisters, you and I have to move right now. Now is the best time for us to move. We can't wait for tomorrow. Can't wait for tomorrow. We won't make it. We won't make it tomorrow. We've got to move now, because we're dying now at such a rate across America. No matter where you are, what they're doing is they're killing us. They're killing us, right? Wouldn't you agree? They're killing us where we are. And we've got to fight. We've got to fight. And we've got to fight as a united unit. We have to fight as a united unit. Now, how do we do that? How do we fight as a united unit? As a united unit, once we've gotten together, once we have some understanding amongst one another, understand the oppression that we're under, understand the design of the oppression, that this depression and this oppression has a design, right? The design is for us to turn on one another. The design is for us to destroy one another. And I know lots of people say, well, I understand the design, but they'll go right back doing what they've been doing before. You're just going to have some tough skin to look beyond that and love anyhow, embrace anyhow, right? You're going to have to do that. You're going to have to do that. This is what God is calling us to do. He's calling us to have some maturity, some cultural maturity, to be able to look beyond all of that. You can't talk to everyone. Some people say they have understanding, brothers and sisters. They don't. They don't have any understanding. People will lie about anything to make it appear that they're trumping you, and that's the teaching of the white man. This is a teaching that was learned in bondage. It's not our natural teaching. This teaching was learned in bondage. And if you got everything together, then you can't get any help anywhere. And God designed for man and woman to be together. God designed for brother and sister to be together, or brothers to be together, or sisters to be together, or the black family to be united, is that we will first have unity and that we will come together, right? And once we come together to discuss our grievances, our differences on whatever level, whatever the situation is, then we'll strengthen, right? Because in unity there's strength. In other words, when we become one mind, right, we'll become one body, right? When we become one mind, when we're thinking as one people, then we become one body. We become one nation if we're thinking as one people. Right now, we're coming together, but we're still slaves on the plantation. And we're still trusting, right? Isn't that what we're doing? We're still trusting the enemy. We're still trusting the design. And there's some people saying right now, well, all white people aren't the enemy. No one has said they are. But I tell you again, the same thing I always use. If you had 1,000,000 bees, and I have on a bee outfit, and I tell you, brother, why are you running? Those bees are not dangerous. Why are you running? And you say, well, brother, there's some bees coming, and I got to get out of there. And you don't know nothing about that because you got on a bee outfit. And I told you with this bee outfit on, brother, you must be crazy. Because I know the bees on the outside, those billion, have stingers, but in between those billions, there's 1,000,000 that don't have stingers. And if you can just wade between the billion that are stinging you and get to the center, you'll be all right. There are two problems wrong with that, brothers and sisters. You'll be out of your mind stopping and waiting for 1,000,000,000 bees to sting you, waiting to get to the 1,000,000 that may not have stingers. And then what you need to understand is once you get into the 1,000,000 that may not have stingers, if you find them without stingers, you still got to let them pass. And once they pass, then surely the other billion that has stingers are going to sting you until they passed over you. Isn't that right? So in order to avoid that, you don't get stung by any bees. Isn't that right? The ones with stingers or the ones that quote unquote don't have stingers. If there was 1,000,000,000 snakes and you were dropped in a pit, you'd be in just as much danger if somebody told you, well, hey, brother, there's 1,000,000,000 snakes. And those 1,000,000,000 snakes, they're harmful, but look, in the middle of those billion, there's supposed to be 1,000,000 that don't have any teeth. They're not poisonous. Well, you'd be out of your mind standing in the middle because somebody who's not in the snake pit has told you that there's 1,000,000 snakes down there that don't have fangs and are not poisonous. Brothers and sisters, when somebody is not in a situation, it's always easier for them to give advice to the person that's in the situation. And so what I'm trying to tell you is this: we're all in the situation together. The white man is not in our situation, so he can't give us any advice. And any black person that's not in your situation can't give you any advice. And you have to understand that. You have to understand that. And I say that. Why do I say that? But if there were those that give over to the system of integration, the system of police killing blacks, that have given over to this system and the powers in the system, then their thinking is not like your thinking. They're in a lower nature because that nature submits to the power. And so they're going to always listen to what the white man says, right? Who says you're not in any danger, who says that you're the reason that you're in the situation that you're in, right? When it's clear that many of us have been brought here, our ancestors were brought here in certain areas, right? In certain states, isn't that right? Such as the 13 colonies and all of those that seceded after that, that you had slaves in those areas. Now, there were other black people in America, that's true. But those of us that were planted in certain areas, that germinated, we germinated, we populated under the system of oppression in slavery. And even if the state wasn't in slavery, that state was in oppression. They were in segregation. And we all know that segregation and colonialism as a first act is really older than slavery. Isn't that right? So we've got to be wise and understand that a lot of our actions, our emotions, a lot of our responses are responses that have been handed down to us from the second, third, fourth generation, from our parents that were in bondage, from individuals in our families that were in bondage, that were responding in bondage. They may have met a brother or sister that were not in that level of bondage, but if you've been in America and if you were born in America as an African, you have been in bondage of American oppression. Whether it was segregation or whether it was a plantation, you were in the bondage of oppression. So as we join together tonight, brothers and sisters, as you join together tonight, you and I, we are discussing ways that we can come together. We're discussing ways that we can come together, you and I. That's what we're discussing. And God will help us come together if we will put our pride aside. Right? If we put our pride aside and just be honest. Because many of us love one another. Many of us love one another. Is that right? Yeah, of course we do. But the thing that stops us is that we won't put our differences aside. We won't put our differences aside. We got to put our differences aside. And we've got to come together, irregardless of our differences. And if we put these differences aside, we'll come together and we'll be able to make it. We'll be able to overcome these insurmountable odds. We'll be able to do that. So brothers and sisters, even if it's what groups, right, and leaders, is that correct? And that have had their say in the past, they've had confusions in the past, that have been at each other in the past, then there's a reason today for us to come together, just like there was as much reason yesterday for us to come together. Because we're fighting an age-old enemy that doesn't care how well you and I are getting along. He could care less. He could care less. And I say this again because the white man don't want us to be united, not the racist white man, right? And somebody said, well, are you saying there are no racist white men? What I'm saying is if there was a billion bees, right? I don't have the answer. I don't have the answer. I have to treat all as racist. I have to treat it that way because I don't have any answers. I do know that it's better to say that all are racist. And I do believe that all are racist. All may not act in racism, but I believe all people are racist. And I hear some people say, well, Kim Kardashian married to Kanye West, and there's some white and black marriages. Well, yeah, of course it was. And that's nothing new. That's nothing new. Sammy Davis Jr. was married to Mae Britt. If you know Mae Britt, she was an actress, right? Well-known actress. And they were married, right? In the days when black folks just didn't do that. As a matter of fact, Sammy Davis Jr. working on the John F. Kennedy campaign couldn't be seen with Mae Britt. Is that right or wrong? Anybody that knows history knows that. But what I'm saying is this, is that even though he was married to somebody white, and she wasn't necessarily American, racism is a global phenomenon of the European. So no matter where the European is, you always have the white people oppressing darker skinned people, white people oppressing people of color. You always have that. And that's the thing that I want you to understand. You have to understand it. If you're going to make it, it's something that you have to understand. And we don't have time for foolishness or ignorance. That time is past. We don't have time to hold anyone's hand. That time is past. I'm asking you to be grown men and grown women, irregardless of the squabbles you have with defense organizations of whatever laity, whatever weight. It's time for us to come together. We've got to come together. We've got to get beyond these things, right? And come together and understand that there are people that are against us. There are people that are against us. And we are stronger together. We can organize stronger together. We can perform stronger together, no matter what the level of performance is, no matter what the level of organization is. At the end of the day, I want you to understand, if you're black, that you and I have a common problem. It doesn't matter. Racism is not going to go away because white people and black people are marrying one another. Racism is not going to go away because black and white entertainers are marrying one another. Racism is not going to go away because you have blacks and whites that are succumbing to their lower nature. Just like you have wealthy whites and wealthy blacks that are succumbing to their lower nature in order to have a relationship or get some kind of physical or sexual gratification. It's not going to stop the white man from killing us. We are still under racism. We're still under oppression. And we will be under racism and oppression until you and I begin to stand up against the system of racism and oppression that's facing us. And that's our challenge. That's our goal. That's our goal. It shouldn't take us 20 or 30 years to do this. It shouldn't take us 20 or 30 years to do it. We should be able to do it immediately and right away. When we move forward, brothers and sisters, we can't be people pleasers and we can't be influenced or turned on by crowds. This is not the way successful organizations amongst one another are built. If there's only a few groups, black nationalist groups, to come together, and we don't get all the groups to come together, there are a few people, and we don't get all the people to come together, that's not the purpose of us meeting. We're not turned on by crowds. We can't be turned on by crowds anymore. We know that crowds can be manipulated. If they can be manipulated virtually, right, as we see, because they can be manipulated, then we know that they can be manipulated socially. And in that sense, all skin folk are not kinfolk. Is that right? But in order to build up a strong stand for Black nationalism, because that's what you and I are doing today, we're building up a strong stance for Black nationalism. And in order for us to do that, we've got to still come together. And if we treat Black folks, right, treat them to a United Black Front type of mentality, then even those that have come there in the wrong frame of mind will eventually get on the right sheet of music. Isn't that right? So that we can all come together. So we have to understand that. We have to understand that. You know, and I've said this, you know, it's very clear when someone, you look, and I want to use an example. I'm not striking at anyone, but I want to use this example. When you've had someone who have fought through impossibilities to create possibilities, then they have the knowledge, right, of failure as a success. Is that right or wrong? And nothing worth having, nothing with years on it or behind it, says anything like success other than continuity or something being constant, right? Never changing, just being dependable. If it never changes in your environment, then it's dependable. Isn't that right? So we have to, regardless of whatever situation, learn to be dependable, learn to be constant. That's our desire. The topic, greetings, brother. Salam alaikum. Peace be unto you, brother Anthony. The topic we're talking about today is putting our differences aside. We've got to put our differences aside. And we're talking about it, putting our differences aside for the sake of a United Black Front, and explaining what the United Black Front is to Black people and what it should be. So the topic, what's the topic? Is putting our differences aside. I want to type that in. Putting our differences aside for the United Black Front. We have to put our differences aside. Put them aside. And so, brothers and sisters, this is the desire. This is the desire. Once we put them aside, we'll be able to form Black Nationalist Army. We'll be able to form that. Now we have a heckler here. It's really Taharka Bey, because he has many different names. We have many different names. Taharka Bey does. So he'll come through. His name is a Black Thought on some of the things. He has lots of different names that he come through. We're going to allow him to come on through. He said he's talking about lying and all of that. No, we're talking about building up forces to protect our community and coming together. This is what we're talking about. And the brother comes through, and he likes to heckle. So we're glad that he stopped by, because that action helps us. The action actually helps us. So you have a Black Nationalist Army. It's to defend Black communities all around. We have to. We have people that are getting killed in different areas. It would be difficult and foolish, not only difficult, but also foolish, for us to go out and attack people in different areas. Because if we haven't given training and overall training in those other areas and encourage people to defend themselves by picking up arms, right, then we're handicapping them. We're handicapping them. So, and anybody can lead the army. It doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter who it is. And I think it's foolish for us to rely on one organization to do it. That's why the Black nationalist organizations, whatever they may be, if they're serious, should come together, join together, and train people in different areas. It doesn't matter where they're from. You don't even have to be a part of an organization, but if you want to help defend, your people, right? Then you step up in charge, and you're able to do that. You're able to do that. If you have a desire to defend your community, if you have a desire to organize your community, then you'll be able to defend your community. It doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter where you are. You know the administration. You know the administration where you are. You know the administration. And you'll have to adapt to that area where you're from. You'll have to adapt. And your area is particular to you, brothers and sisters. Right? And the first level of that is the man and the woman protecting their children in their own home. That's the level. You protect, if you're a father, you're a mother, then you should be protecting your own children in your home. If you are fathers in the community, then all fathers should have an understanding, right, that it's their job to protect their children in their home. And I base it on this. And we let that Black Thoughts go on. Thank you. Continue to feed that, Brother Anthony and Black Thoughts, because I know you're the same person. Both of y'all are Tahaka Bay, and it definitely helps our show out. So I appreciate the feed. But when you get brothers and sisters that have the same mind to defend their community, the same mind, then they will defend their families, right? By defending their families, then you can defend your community. You see what I mean? Now, there are certain individuals in different states that have information that send in for those informations. You know who you are. You have your questions have been answered for what you have to do. And this is how you know when there are agents that are on the line. Now you see these brothers, right? Who's really the same person, Tahaka Bay, asking questions. How do you build this army? He's paid to get the information to the white man. I mean, this is his job. Now he's over here heckling my show, right? When I'm telling black people to defend themselves. We had a young man to get killed by police. Police walked in, shot him. Young man didn't have a weapon or anything like that. Police walked in and shot him. We're talking about Donovan, which is another one of the thousands of black people that have been killed by the police, and Tahaka Bay can't think of anything better to do than to have these pseudo names to come on here and heckle us, and we're trying to organize to protect the black community. You see, it's that easy. This is how you know an agent. And besides, what can a pedophile, someone who's endangered a child, rape and molest children, many to the place that he's called a registered pedophile, a registered child molester, registered sexual offender, right? Who's done over 20 years of crime. So he's become a professional criminal, professional drug dealer, professional. How do you get out of that to own houses and land and things of that nature, right? To overtake a religion, to overtake a religion, right? And manipulate it with other pedophiliacs, right? With other registered sex offenders and all of those that are around him. He's even have a child himself. That's dangerous, right? Not do the prison time. As a matter of fact, to have that expunged. He goes from that, right, to a radio show, to owning land, to owning houses, apartment buildings, right, to getting monies to do these things, and even have his rap album. Even have his rap album. And so he's supposed to change his life. He says that he wants to be the next Malcolm X. Malcolm X wasn't out doing what you was doing, brother. Malcolm X wasn't doing that. You can't ride off of something like that, attacking other people. This shows instability. This shows foolishness, and it's a gangster type mentality. It's a gangster type. It's not an intelligent mentality. It's an ignorant mentality. You see, we're talking about coming together, and anyone that will come to attack someone, talking about getting people together to have a proper response to the problems that are happening to us, you know who the agent is. Brothers and sisters, I've been around a long time. A long time. Yeah, preaching this and being attacked on every level in every way. Every level in every way. I'll continue to stand up for the liberation of our people, irregardless of whatever. Irregardless. Because if you have a goal and a focus to serve the people, and you continue in that, the people are going to see you. They're going to continue to believe in the work that you're doing. They don't have to believe in you, but to believe in the work that you're doing and come together to defend themselves. We have to protect our community. We have to protect it. It's not the police job to do it. They're not going to protect us. They're going to keep killing us. The police is going to keep killing us. They're not going to protect us. The only people that are going to protect black people is for us to protect one another. The only people that's going to protect our men is our women. The only people that's going to protect our women is our men. That's it. And you can't talk about building an army if the men and the women are divided against one another. You can't do it. You can't talk about building an army when the men and the women are attacking one another. You can't do it. The woman can't, on the one hand, provoke the man and call the police, and then on the other hand, turn around and ask the black man to protect her when the police are killing her children. You can't do it. We have to have some understanding, brothers and sisters, and we have to know exactly where we are, who we are, how we got here, what was happening before we got here, where that man came from. He's your enemy. How did he become your enemy? Right? How did he get to the place where he's able to inflict upon you the violence that he's been inflicting upon you for all of these years? We have to understand that. And so since we're in this situation and we know how we got here and we know who we're dealing with, then we'll know how to get out of it. But we'll never know it until we be honest with ourselves and understand where we are, how we got here. When you look at the black family, okay, that's another situation, another level of bondage. How did our black family get the way that it is today? How did these black deviants become created? It came from the white man. It came from the plantation. How do we undo what the white man has done? We do it by coming together and reasoning together and really dealing with the problems and situations that we're faced with so that it will no longer be an obstacle to us. That's our job. That's our job as parents. It's our job as individuals. It's our job as keepers of one another. That's our job. And once we understand that, and once we're able to do that, then brothers and sisters will be able to overcome anything that comes against us. Anything that comes against us. So I certainly want to thank you, brothers and sisters, for being with us. Thank you for being patient. As you know, this show is not intended to be long, but it's intended to be strong so that you will have the knowledge that I can impart, just a little part that I can do, because we're all wise. God has called all of us. He called all of us to have something to say. And if we step in the direction and the power of God, not in satanic power, but in righteousness, we'll be able to do what God has set us to do. You and I will be able to do that. And so our desire and our prayer is that we can do it. And we can do it with the power of God. But we have to be willing to do it in God's power. We will have to be willing to do it in God's power. And brothers and sisters, if we work in God's power, then we'll be able to overcome these insurmountable odds. We overcome these insurmountable odds, we can come together as a black family and be able to deal with the problems and situations that are facing us today. So I challenge you. I challenge you and I encourage you tonight, from here on out, to seek peace with those that you can seek peace with. To be at peace with those that you can be at peace with. Right? To only war with those who are warring with you. And if it happens to be on this side, then let's work together so that these irreconcilable differences, though these things that seem irreconcilable, can be reconciled with us one toward the other. That's my prayer. That's my desire. My prayer, my desire should be yours too. Should be yours too. We shouldn't be against one another, but we should be working together to create a defense, to be able to keep our stronghold, to be able to defend our keep. What is our keep? The black family is our keep, brothers and sisters. The love that we have for the black family is our keep. We got to be able to do that and stand strong. You and I have to be able to do that. It can't be done by anyone else except you and I. And this is what the sister Dr. Ava Muhammad was talking about. This is what she was working toward. Anyone serious about black nationalism is going to be building black communities where it's only black people, a community of black people, a community of black business owners, a community of black economics, a community of black service where black people can get black treatment that's going to be beneficial to their community. The one reason that the white man's community is as strong and as powerful as it is our contribution to his system of racism. But we've got to be contributors to our system of black nationalism. That's what you and I have to do. And brothers and sisters, when we do that, God will send us power. He will send us power from on high, where we're able to do the very thing that will benefit our community. Brothers and sisters, be encouraged. Be encouraged, brothers and sisters. No matter how bad it gets, be encouraged. No matter how many agents are out there to work against you, be encouraged and stand strong in God's power. In God's power, stand strong in the power of God. God can deliver you. God can help you. God can. God can do it. But you have to let God do it. And you have to be obedient to the duty that God has given you. You've got to be obedient to it. Right? And we'll be obedient to God's duty. His direction will bring us all together. Put us toward the one focus. Salvation, brothers and sisters. Liberation. Peace, justice, equality, Christianity, or Islam. Isn't that right? Peace be unto you, brothers and sisters. If I didn't say it in the beginning, I say it now. Assalamu alaikum, which means peace be unto you.